Alrighty, hello. Welcome back to the Smokified podcast. It's February. We said we would be back in January, but that's okay. We've got
Sure.
we've got a lot to talk about. We missed the Grammys and a
hmm
halftime show at the Super Bowl.
hmm
Um, some
Both
big
of which
album
will
releases.
both of which will make me angry, I think. So
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay.
yeah.
All
I'm
right.
sorry for
It's
you
okay.
as a Drake fan. It's not
Ah,
it's not been the best
um,
couple months for you.
no, that's okay. We'll
But
get to it.
the Grammys will also make me upset. I think they make everybody upset. A couple
That's
good
true.
things, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
hmm
First, we've got some album reviews. I think you've got two albums to talk about today. I've got one. Um,
Yes.
so
I
maybe do you want
figured,
to start with yours?
yeah, I can start with mine. So I have two, one from January, one from February, because I just figured, missed a month, might as well make it up a little bit, right? So two albums I picked. One was Wham by Lil Baby. And then the second one was Some Sexy Songs for You by Drake, which I have been, I was very excited for that one, obviously. But yeah, those are the two I'm gonna go through. Should I just, go straight into it?
Yeah, sure. I We could do
Want to do
like
an
switch
alternate?
off. Yeah, yeah, if you want to start with one and
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll start with Lil Baby and we'll save Drake for the end.
good. Save best for last.
Yeah, exactly. So I picked this album just because I was kind of interested in the storyline here because Lil Baby, especially over the last few years, one of the most popular rappers out there, has really hit it mainstream the last few years. And so he dropped in 2022 and 2021. But I would say his last real big successful album was 2020. So to me, this album that dropped this year felt like not really a last chance, but I was like, if you really want to be one of the big names in music right now or rap or whatever, you got to show something here because I listened to his last two albums. I wasn't that impressed. I felt like they were pretty samey, repetitive, and I was looking forward to this one because I thought it might be something different. So, um, yeah, overall, just some high level thoughts. I don't think it really bucked the trend, unfortunately. It felt pretty uninspired and repetitive. I think there was very little to no switch up in flows that he was using, and that's not really something he does in general. He just kind of keeps that same flow, that same delivery. The beats were good, but I feel like in his earlier work, especially like early like 2018 era, when he was first coming up, like you could really feel his charisma and like how maybe hungry he was trying to, come up in the game and earn some respect and things like that. And that never came through really at any point on this album and really the last few. And so this album I felt like was heavily carried by features. And they feel like a breath of fresh air in comparison to any time Lil Baby is rapping. And I don't want to trash on Lil Baby because like I do like him. I think he's fine. But shit, dude, like the rest of the album just really felt like a slog to get through, to be honest. Just because um it was just the same stuff like throughout the album, like there's no switching of sounds, there was nothing new really tried. It was just kind of the same stuff over and over again. And so it was a very like run of the mill kind of trap album. So there were some highlights for me, but again, those were kind of a result of the features and just kind of how, those features kind of made those songs feel bigger than, than the rest of the album. So Dumb, Dumb and Dumber, which had Young Thug and Future. Thought that was a really good one. I think that was one of the first few songs that Young Thug had put out since being in jail, basically. So I like that one. Redbone by him and Glorilla, I thought was pretty good. Glorilla just like demolishes him on his track, not even just because of like her rapping ability, but just because of like you can feel um I don't want to say aura, but you could feel the aura. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
you could tell that she's really a different kind of character. She's a very charming, like really pulls you in.
She's got the right energy for it.
She does. Absolutely, especially again in comparison to everything else. And so other highlight was outfit with him and 21 Savage. I think they played off each other really well there, actually. So overall, if you were already a Lil Baby fan, you'll probably like this album just because, again, it gives you kind of exactly what you were looking for, but you were hoping for something different, kind of like I was, and it's probably not the one for you. But yeah, I don't know. I probably won't go back to this. I'll go back to like the three songs that I mentioned, but yeah, overall, I kind of was left wanting more there, to be honest. So
Gotcha. That's too
yeah,
bad. Interestingly, though, I was just looking up while you're describing that, just his release schedule, and it looks like he's got another album coming out this month, question mark.
yeah,
It's scheduled for February 2025, and that's I don't know, that's kind of crazy.
that's
He's got like
that's
two
now,
two things back to back. Yeah, that's now.
right?
Um, so I don't know if that's real. I mean, obviously we're familiar with lots of artists who tease releases and then who knows when they actually get released. But
Yeah,
that's interesting at least that he's very creative right now. It seems like he's
yeah.
releasing a lot, even if it's not maybe even if it's a lot of more of the same.
Yeah, and I think there's like there's I don't know how real this is, but this is just what I was reading in the hip hop tabloids, I should say. But you know, him and Gunna were super tight. Collaborated a ton. They have a collaboration album as
Hmm.
well, and like Drip Too Hard, which you know, I don't know if you know that song off the top of your head, but
I
was
don't.
probably like one of the most popular songs like while we were in college.
Okay.
Huge song came out of that as well. And so I believe there's a little bit of a conflict between them because of
Mm,
Gunna supposedly like snitched in this trial that Young Thug was involved in, whatever. And so he's like they don't really mess with each other anymore, which is disappointing because I think they both have the same problem where a lot of their stuff can get very samey, but when they play off each other, it actually works really,
mm,
really well. But I will say that Gunna over the last few years has absolutely evolved as an artist way more than Lil Baby has. And
okay.
so, um, yeah, it's interesting that we won't get to see them collaborate most likely in the
Right.
future because I think that could have led to something interesting. And I think they really like previously have like pushed each other to get better. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I just don't think that that juice is there for Lil Baby
Yeah.
anymore. So.
That's too bad. That's always too bad too when like two good artists like they have a good connection and then like the connections
Yeah,
get
just
lost between people all the time and like
mhm.
it's hard like as a fan knowing that because you're like, oh, they could just get back together like this band or something could just
Yeah, but it won't be the
figure it
same, you
out.
know.
Yeah.
It
Uh-huh.
won't be the
Uh-huh.
same even if they try it again. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is what it is, but you know,
Gotcha.
I kind of knew what to expect a little bit going into it,
Sure.
but I was just hoping for more. So
Sure. Yeah.
but yeah. All right, I'll throw it to you.
Alrighty. So I'm gonna talk about this album called Cowards by Squid. And Squid is a band from United Kingdom that is from this like I guess scene of music you'd call it, genre of music. I don't know, called windmill. It's like an emerging, I guess, genre, although it's been around for a few years now. But I think Windmill might have been the name of a band, or sorry, the name of a bar that a bunch of these bands played at. And yeah, and I had previously talked about Black Midi on this podcast, and they're also associated with the same genre or scene. And anyways, this band Squid, they just released their third album called Cowards, and I had listened to their stuff before, never really like loved it, but always was enjoying it, found it to be interesting. very much on the like experimental rock side. The windmill sound, I would say, is kind of like art rocky. Um, and there's definitely a variety of sounds within the genre, but this band in particular is pretty experimental. Kind of reminds me of Radiohead in some ways, but maybe crossed with like a band like Pavement or a friend of mine compared them to Sonic Youth, and I could see that comparison as well. Like very um, experimental American music. But yeah, so this album Cowards just came out and I loved it. It is a really, really great album. So much so that I ordered it on vinyl. Oh, we got the blur.
And the blur feature,
Let's
gotcha.
see. Let's see if I can unblur this for a second. Got it signed. Um, they had signed copies that weren't. I mean, I think they're all sold out now, but I got lucky when they were selling them and ordered one. Not that expensive. It was like $50 and
Nice.
totally worth it. Yeah, I love this album. So, really interesting production, lots of instrumentation. It's a little bit more subdued, I guess, like musically as compared to their other stuff, like slower tracks at times and um, sometimes like slow burning tracks like that start quiet and then like build up. But I think all of them like really just do a good job of like what like this album is kind of everything that I want from like an experimental rock album and from like
Mm,
their record. I can remember each like track pretty well. I think the lyrics are, I mean, I haven't fully figured out everything that's like going on, but it seems to be kind of like I see it as a bit of a critique of like American culture and uh yeah, I guess consumerism in some ways. And yeah, just generally good stuff. Um what I think is interesting though is like I'm not seeing everyone react like this. I have seen a
mm,
couple other people say like, "Oh, this is their best album yet," which I would agree with, but most of the reviews that I'm seeing are like middle of the road, like meh, like
mm.
5 out of 10, and that's like so surprising to me because like I really really like it. I don't know, I
Yeah.
I've listened to it probably. Well, I don't want to put a number on it, but a bunch of times.
Mm,
um, yeah, and I can't think of like a weak link. There is like one song that's called so there's a song called Fieldworks, and it's split up into part one and part two. Part one is weaker than part two, I would say, but because they're like kind of tied to each other, I don't really fault it that much for that. But yeah, I don't know. Totally worth a listen if you're into experimental rock. Big fan of this album. So yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. I was looking up their Wikipedia page and it shows like their albums that they released in like the peak chart positions. And their debut album, it looks like it peaked at number 4 on the UK charts, and then second one was 34, and then this one was 92, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is
It
interesting.
doesn't seem like they have much mainstream appeal at this point. Do you think the album was maybe like too experimental? I know that you tend to like more experimental stuff in general, but
I just comparing it to their last album, and I need to go back and listen to their first album because I know people praise that one a lot, and I don't think I ever actually listened to it. But their last album, I remembered listening to it and thinking, this is good, but then like kind of not being able to remember any of the songs. Like
Mhm,
it was almost like too out there, like that there wasn't any like anything to grab onto, like from like a catchy poppy kind of standpoint. Whereas
yeah.
this album, I feel like maybe if anything is like a little bit more watered down in comparison. And I
Hmm,
wonder if some people maybe were like, oh, it's not unique enough or something. But for me, it
hmm,
was like, oh, this really clicked for me. This album really clicked for me. But it is interesting that it's not doing well on charts because like
yeah.
usually something that's a little bit I don't watered down's maybe not the right description for it. Obviously
Right.
that kind of has a negative connotation, but
more
Yeah,
mainstream
I
appeal,
found it
maybe.
more, yeah, I found it more approachable.
Yeah.
Maybe again, it was like maybe a slower album, like some softer songs at times, but yeah, surprising to me that it's not doing very well. But yeah, I really love it. So definitely highly
So
recommend it for people interested in the genre.
nice. That is pretty interesting. I didn't know anything about Windmill prior to today, so
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like Windmill has yet to have its like Nirvana Nevermind moment. There's a lot of like bands that are pretty big in the rock scene, underground rock scene, but like they've all had issues internally. Like Black Midi already broke up. Um, there's this other band, Black Country New Roads, I think was the name of it. And like the lead singer left the band already, so they've like kind of changed pretty
Hmm.
significantly. They have a new singer. Um, and this band, I mean, they honestly have had the most like consistency, I guess. But
Right.
yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to me that maybe it's just a lull period before something big happens with that scene, or we'll see some new
Yeah.
bands out of the scene, or what.
Hmm.
But this album, yeah, I can't say enough good stuff about it. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's pretty cool. We'll keep an eye out on them moving
yeah,
forward. So
for sure.
very nice. All right. Well, let's get into it. Um, all right. So I am notoriously a huge Drake fan. I don't think that's any secret. Um, so I was very excited for this album, which is called Some Sexy Songs for You by Drake. Okay. Um, it was this, so this is a collaboration album with Party Next Door. And this album was like talked about for a long time. I think even like about a year ago, it was like announced or whatever. And then it was supposed to be released last year. Things happened last year. I'm pretty sure that's why it got bumped. And so it was released on Valentine's Day this year. And so it was an R&B album. If you don't know anything about Party Next Door is an R&B artist signed to Drake's label. And they've done a lot of work together. Party Next Door writes a lot of songs for Drake. And yeah, so they have a good relationship. A lot of songs that they've done in the past have been really good, but they've never done a collaboration album like this before. So I was looking forward to it because I am a big Party Next Door fan. I think I've made you listen to a Party Next Door album and review it
On
as
this
well
podcast.
on this podcast. Yep. And yeah, so this was going to be an interesting listen, especially in the context of the whole Kendrick stuff and everything like that. So um yeah, so immediate thoughts I would say are like again high level. If you weren't a Drake fan and you listen to this album, it's not going to do anything for you. If you were on the edge about Drake and you like his more melodic stuff and him singing, you will like this, I think. And if you are a Drake fan, he gave you exactly what you were looking for. Okay. So that being said, I thought this album was pretty decent. Um, I think generally it was panned by critics. They didn't really mess with it. And I can definitely understand why, because it's nothing spectacular. It's nothing new. It's nothing that interesting either. Um, I think that again, I say this to friends, and I don't know if this is really fair to say, but if you listen to a Drake album for lyrical content and like introspective thoughts from Drake, you are listening for the wrong reasons at this point in his career. I think early in his career, that was definitely like something that he did really well at. Kind of explaining his process of like achieving fame and kind of how that affected him and his relationships, especially with women and other people that he would encounter in his life. I think that was a big plus. But at this point, he is way too rich to be any kind of relatable. So if you're expecting any of that, you should not. Um, but yeah, I think overall this album was good. A lot of really good, well, a lot of good R&B tracks that I enjoyed listening to. Really interesting production. I think at the first listen I gave it, I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of was expecting something mind-blowing, just because of, again, the context of everything that had happened. And that's not what we were given here, and that's okay. But I think all the tracks were really well put together. Um, there were no additional features outside of Party Next Door and Drake, except for one. There was one song called Pimmy's Dilemma, which had the featured artist of Pimmy, who I've never heard of, but is a an R&B artist, I guess. I think she's from the UK, I want to say. Not 100% sure. Maybe Canadian as well, actually. I'm not sure. So, um, but yeah, it was just straight tracks, I think.
I thought Yeba was on one track.
Oh, you're right. Yebo is on one track as well, but it had a very brief feature as well.
Gotcha.
And I'll talk about that track because I thought it was really interesting. So, um, I will say that the back half of this album I thought was really good. The first half is a little slower, not as much interesting stuff going on, but the back half I thought really brought it all together. So, some standout songs for me. CN Tower I thought was a really good opening track for this song, and I think, or for this album, and I think that Drake historically does really well with his opening tracks on albums. So I really like that one. Raining in Houston, I thought was really good. Give Me a Hug was really good. Nokia and Die Trying were also standouts, among others as well. Um, Now I'm gonna have to talk about the worst song on the album because it's gotten a lot has been said about it. So there's a song called Meet Your Padre. Okay. Um, you haven't heard it,
I
I'm
haven't heard
assuming.
it, but I've heard people talk about it.
Okay. So it's objectively not good, objectively. Okay. And you might ask, why is that? Well, Drake is rapping in a Spanish accent. He's not Spanish. He speaks a little bit, I guess, but he's not Spanish. Um, the hook of the song is, I want to meet your madre, give my respect to your padre, mi amor. And like, what the fuck, man? Like, just, no, this guy can't be it. It can't be it. The most frustrating part about this is that I think the production on the song was actually really good, and this could have been a good song, but it's not. And that was really sad to me because honestly, like when Drake collaborates with Spanish speaking artists, it actually turns out pretty well, generally. He had a song with Bad Bunny in like 2016 or something called Mia. That was really good. He did a song with a bachata artist called Romeo Santos in like 2014. I thought that was really good. And then he's had some like random features here and there. Again, pretty solid. So I saw this song and I was like, okay, he's gonna speak in Spanish here, and it's gonna be weird, but like it's probably gonna be good. And it was not. Unfortunately, the beat is so good that I can't stop listening to it, but it's not great. So that's my little rant on that.
Gotcha.
Outside of that, I sent you a song which I made you listen
Nokia.
to called Nokia. That's a great song, I thought. I
I
think
will
that is
say
exactly what I needed. Yeah.
I was surprised by Nokia. I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. It was
Hmm.
like kind of weird. It was different.
Yes.
And yeah, I guess that like for me, someone who's not really a Drake fan, um someone who also just isn't intimately familiar with his music but knows his hits, I was like,
Hmm.
whoa, this is a new style and he's doing it pretty well. And I
Hmm.
feel like I've heard other people generally say thumbs up for this song.
Yes,
Um,
yes. It
so
has definitely been one of the more popular songs on the album, and it's fun. Like the production is really different and interesting. And like Drake, as always, is able to crank out party hits, and I don't think that's, anything new.
mhm.
So I really like that song. And I've been playing it a ton. It's probably my favorite song in the album. But second, close second, I would say, is a song that comes right after it called Die Trying. Actually, let
And
me
that
make sure
was the
that,
one with Yeba, I think that you sent me. Now
that's the
I
one with
was
Yaba.
not a fan of the song personally, but
Yeah.
you
And
can make your case.
I can definitely understand why. Because like I heard this song initially and I was like, it reminded me of that song, Hey There, Delilah. Super weird, like delivery and flow, or not weird, but just very different from what Drake usually does. And I was like caught a little off guard.
Hmm.
But it's kind of like it feels like an indie song almost. I don't listen to a lot of indie music, so I don't even know if that's accurate, honestly. But um, like the guitar is the main kind of production point, and yeah, it just felt I'm honest, I don't even know how else to describe it. It was a good song. I liked it. It was very different from what Drake has ever done before. It felt very much like an indie song that like Drake had just put his voice to rather than, you know, a traditional indie artist. And um I liked that change up from him, and I thought Party Next Door did a really interesting like hook on it as well. And I mentioned to you, I was like, this feels like a song that like someone like Post Malone or something would be on and contribute a lot to. And I think that was I still like kind of want to hear that happen because I think it would boom in popularity if that was the case. But people really like this song. At least from what I've like Drake fans, I should say, really like this song. And I think it is a little bit of a kind of a commentary on his career in the context of the beef that happened. You know, he's kind of talking about this girl and whether he wants to stay with her or leave, or he's unsure of like where his place with her is. And I think that's, you know, kind of reminiscent of
Sure.
you know, everything that's happened. And so again, I kind of like that. And yeah, the Yeba feature at the end is great. She's awesome. Um, I don't know if she's released much lately, but I need to check up on her because every time she features on something, it's really good. So,
Hmm.
um, but yeah, overall, I think this album is worth a listen if you like Drake. If you are a Drake hater, this will continue to let you hate. So, gives you some fodder there. But yeah, if you like kind of more melodic R&B type stuff, and you have an interest in P&D or Drake, then this is a good album for you. And I guess I should talk a little bit more about Party Next Door because this is a we haven't really heard much from Party Next Door over the last few years. He released an album, I guess it was last year, and
With an
I don't know if
obscene music album cover.
the cover is insane, and every time it pops up on my phone, I feel like I have to turn my screen off because it's just absurd. But anyways, he's again, as you know, any artist collaborating on an album with Drake would be, he's kind of an afterthought here. But I thought the contributions he made were pretty decent. I think that there were some times where I wanted less Party Next Door just because, like, I don't know. I think Party Next Door is really good as a writer, but I think sometimes his own delivery of lines can be a little off. Um, and especially when he's just like talking super sexually explicit. I'm just like, dude, I don't need this. So and it's a lot of that. So I could have done with less of that. But again, I like his voice. I think he has a good ear for beats and for cadences and things like that. So I think he overall was a positive contribution. Um, but yeah, less just a little less sexually explicit lyrics would be great. And I know that that's just like all rap and R&B, but it's like this was especially
A little
um,
over the top.
a little over the top, I would say. So,
Fair
but that's
enough.
my take. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think that's everything I got on that. So,
Nice, nice. Yeah, I guess as a bit of a transition, what you were saying about that song, Die Trying, it kind of did remind me a little bit of some of the songs that were on Cowboy Carter,
hmm,
Beyonce's newest record, which obviously it's being talked about for its country influences, but generally I just found it to be like kind of a traditional pop record, whereas like usually she's doing I guess like I don't know, a more modern pop, I guess you'd say.
Hmm.
and her this album was more traditional pop, and there were some songs that kind of sounded the way you're describing, like guitar, almost sounds like an indie song, but maybe a bit more pop forward. Um, and yeah, I don't know if we've talked about the album Cowboy Carter, but I thought it was a pretty good album. It wasn't like the best thing I've heard from her, even.
Hmm.
But obviously, it's getting a ton of praise. I think it won Album of the
It,
Year at
it
the
yeah,
Grammys, and it
it
won
won
Country Album,
it won Best Country Album and Album of the Year. Yeah.
which obviously pretty historic to win Best Country Album.
Hmm.
And I think deserved. I mean, obviously, like there were other records that were more country, I guess, but there was enough country on it, and it was pretty interesting. And yeah, I don't know, pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you listen to it?
I heard a few songs and yeah, I heard the hits, I guess. And the
Yeah,
hits were good. I thought they were
yeah,
fine. I've honestly had not been a big Beyonce fan for a long time. I think
sure.
like um 2012 was the last like full album that I listened to, or like that time period. So
Hmm.
um I mean, she's obviously a legend and I can respect everything she does, and I appreciate the I guess, foray into country that she tried to make here. Because again, I mean, she's from Texas. It's not like it's new to her.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
she has that background. But yeah, props to her for winning it. I'm sure people are unhappy about it, but
Yeah,
I give her a lot of credit there. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then also just on the Grammys, to mention one other artist that I'm happy for before we get into the artists that we're unhappy about. Um, Happy for Doechii winning Best Rap Album. I just ordered
yeah,
that on vinyl too. I think it's on pre-order right now, but that was a good album. And you had been telling me to listen to Doechii for a while. Um, and I kind of woke up when she won the Grammy, and a couple of days before I had heard a few songs just on shuffle on Spotify, and I was like, those are good songs. Um, yeah, she's dope. She's super talented, and it's exciting. So
yeah. I want to tell people that you became like a Doji super fan in the span of like 3 hours, which I thought was
yeah,
really funny.
yeah,
But also very fitting. So, but yeah, she's fantastic, and that album was awesome. And other candidates for rap album of the year were, I don't want to say bad, but underwhelming, I would say. So it was cool to see the actual best piece of work out of that group
yeah.
actually win. So um yeah, actually let's just take a look at that. So best rap album, the nominees were um Alligator Bites Never Heal by Doechii, which ended up winning. Might Delete Later by J. Cole, which I listened through. Had some good songs, but just not a cohesive album. That felt like a compilation album
Sure.
of sorts. The Auditorium Volume 1 by Common and Pete Rock, which I heard good things about, but didn't listen to myself. The Death of Slim Shady by Eminem, which, dude, I can't fucking listen to Eminem anymore, dude. It was just not. I did not enjoy this at all. People liked it, but I think that's, I don't know, Eminem just has a huge fan base and
Yeah,
fucking white people, whatever. And then
yeah.
We Don't Trust You by featuring Metro Boomin, which I listened to that album a lot and I thought it was good, but was it worthy of album of the year? No.
Sure.
So nice to see Doechii get a win there. And I actually, now that we're talking about the Grammys, I wanted your thoughts on album of the year in general because I thought there were some. I was honestly surprised that Beyonce won.
Hmm.
Um, so Cowboy Carter, Beyonce won. New Blue Sun by Andre 3000 was a nominee. Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter, which I thought that was going to win, honestly. And then Brat by Charlie XCX, which I know you're a huge fan of, and I thought that had a really good chance of winning as well. Jesse Volume 4 by Jacob Collier, who's a great artist, by the way. Don't listen to him a ton, but he's a super talented musician. Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish. The Rise and Fall of the Midwest Princess by Chapel Roan, and then Tortured Poets Department by Taylor Swift. So really, big year for pop in general,
Right,
but
right.
um, Yeah, I was surprised that Beyonce pulled it out. I don't know if you had
Yeah.
any thoughts on some of the other albums there, but
Yeah. I mean, I think Beyonce is a good pick. Obviously, I feel like Charlie XCX got snubbed a little bit throughout. I mean, I think she won 3 Grammys, so like
no.
snubbed. But and I think Short and Sweet could have won as well. I think the Chaperone album could have won as well. The
So
others,
of those listed, what would have been your winner? How about that?
I mean, I would have picked
You would
Brat,
have picked
but
Brat. Yeah, that's
but
fair.
I'm not upset with Beyonce being
Yeah,
picked.
yeah.
I will say on uh Jacob
Oh
Collier,
yeah, yeah.
super
Collier. Mhm.
talented. I hate him.
Really? I thought that's the kind of guy that you would like, but
He's just like too cutesy for me. I don't know, man. Yeah, it's
I
it's
can
more
definitely
just
see
like
that.
whenever I see him talk and stuff, I'm like,
Yes.
ugh,
No,
you know?
I actually do get that. I think like as a musician, super talented, but I think his like persona or
Hmm.
whatever
Hmm.
is I kind of want to bully him a little bit, but that's besides the point.
Yeah, it might be rooted in a little bit of jealousy because he's got a lot of talent, but
Yeah,
that's all
that's fair. That's fair.
right. Um,
Uh, yeah. Was
yeah.
there the I did the Taylor Swift nomination for album of the year, that just felt like
I mean, she's a huge
that's
artist, but
just going through the
I don't
motions
think,
there, to be
yeah, I don't
honest.
think even fans thought it was a great album. So,
Exactly. And I was a little surprised by that one.
yeah,
But maybe they just didn't want the Taylor Swift fandom to burn the fucking building down. So
yeah,
yeah,
maybe.
it
But
is what it is.
we only got a couple minutes left here, so we could switch over to quickly talk about the Super Bowl. But I guess
Yeah.
we could spend the last 2 minutes talking about what we hated about the Grammys, which I guess we started talking about that a little bit, but every year there's just like when it comes to the side genres, the genre like the I don't know, rap, rock, they sometimes those aren't even shown, right?
Hmm.
Where Doechii got shown, which is great, but some years they don't even show that.
Right.
Rock, I don't think was shown. Who won Best Rock Performance this year? I think it was the Beatles. Who won Best Rock Album this year? Rolling Stones. Now, St. Vincent won some other awards, and she's great. I'm happy for her, but she didn't win like the main awards.
Hmm.
How are we in 2025 with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles winning?
Yep.
I and I love both. I'm a
Right.
huge Rolling Stones fan, huge Beatles fan, but like, man, there were
There's
other
got to be more
artists.
out there. There's got to be more out there.
I mean, even Jack White is an older artist at this point, but he had a great album last year, and that's a little bit more modern. There are other artists that were great. I think Idols was nominated. I love Idols. Fontaine's DC was nominated. They were great. I'm sure there's other artists that I'm missing that are newer.
Hmm.
I'm just like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, it's really bad. And the Grammys, despite continual criticism, just do the same thing over and over again and just
It's
pick terrible nominees and sometimes terrible winners. And I don't really get it. Like
yeah.
somehow Chris Brown won Best R&B Album of the Year.
Mhm.
Why? I don't. I listened to that album. It was very unremarkable, and I don't know why he won. I'm not even saying one of the other nominees were that great either, because I think there were definitely better other R&B albums, but I was just disappointed by the selection. So I don't know. Will they ever get it together? Probably not, because I think they get some sexual thrills off of like withholding from fans. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It is what it is. Maybe next year. Who knows? Probably not.
maybe next year. I guess we could spend a little bit more time just talking about the Super Bowl, the halftime show.
Yeah.
Uh, pretty massive moments. The end of the beef, maybe the culmination. I don't know. There was the big question as to whether or not Kendrick was going to play Not Like Us at the Super Bowl. I think everybody thought he was going to. It wasn't much of
Yeah.
a question, but there
Yes.
was talk of, should he play it? Like, should he
Hmm.
just leave the beef behind and just make a political statement? Should he change the lyrics? Is there going to be a lawsuit? All those sorts of things.
I don't think any of that was ever actually in question, to be honest. I think this was more wishful thinking on
Yeah,
people's
that's
behalf.
that's fair.
Again, I'm a big Drake fan. I fully expected what happened to happen.
Hmm.
Like obviously that was going to be the case. And that's fine, you know. I'm going to try to be objective here because I honestly expected more out of the show, to be honest. Like just from a pure like Super Bowl halftime show, I kind of wanted more. Um, I thought he would perform some older stuff, and he just didn't really.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's an
yeah,
interesting point that he played like mostly stuff from his newest album that came out in November, 2 months ago, 3 months ago,
right.
which that is a very surprising choice. And we talked about that album on here. We were kind of meh on it. I mean, I might have liked it a little bit more than you, but like I didn't love it. Some people loved it, but it certainly
Hmm.
wasn't like every hit on the charts and like his most popular songs of all time.
Yeah,
He's
it's definitely that album definitely grew on me. I think I definitely appreciate it a little bit more now.
mhm.
But yeah, I just felt like I it could have been a little bit more. I mean, obviously he performed a couple older hits. He did Humble, I think, and then he also
Yeah,
did All the
DNA.
Stars with SZA and
Yes.
DNA. Yeah, but
Hmm.
nothing off of I mean, was he in that previous show with like
He
Dr.
was,
Dre
and
and
he
Snoop
he
Dogg and them?
played all right, which we had talked about would have been great to play at the Super Bowl, but he already did that, so fair
Right.
enough. But I mean, there's plenty of hits on T-Pab and plenty of hits on Good Kid, Mad City, Money
Yeah.
Trees, Poetic
Yeah.
Justice. No, but
Would have been hilarious.
yeah, he could have played he could have played King Kunta. There's
Hmm.
plenty of stuff that would have been really good.
Right.
And it's
And
interesting.
nothing off Mr. Morale, right?
Nothing, yeah. Which fair enough, I guess, because that was a bit more introspective of an album. And like, what was the biggest hit? I think Father Time, which was like
Yeah.
uh probably not the right setting for a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, it was kind of a weird choice of songs. But anyways, I'll,
Yeah.
I'll let you keep going.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just feel like when these Super Bowl performances happen, I expect like a huge, I don't know, I don't even know how to articulate it, but I expect like a big performance, and it just didn't feel like it, to be honest. I feel like it was a victory lap on the beef, which like, okay, I can understand that. You know, you got the biggest stage in the world, basically. You might as well. Fair enough. Um, but I also felt like the Super Bowl is such a big stage that you should go beyond that as well. And I don't feel like it quite was that either. Because he again performed songs just off the previous album and then made such a big show of that of Not Like Us, whatever. And then I honestly like people were talking about how the show was like a political statement, and it just didn't hit that way to me. I didn't really see that at all. I mean, you had Samuel L. Jackson dressed as Uncle Sam, I guess, but I didn't get any meaning out of that, to be honest. So I don't know if I was missing something, or maybe I'm, not smart enough to understand what was happening. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like when I think about people were talking about this as one of the best like Super Bowl performances of at least the recent era. But like I can, I think back to like the Weeknd's Super
The
Bowl
Weekends
performance,
was good. Yeah.
and that was phenomenal. I thought that was
Hmm.
awesome.
Hmm.
And then even that like Dr. Dre one, with like Snoop Dogg and
Yeah.
50 Cent was there. Like that was really cool too. I mean, it was in LA, obviously, so you get a little more, um, feels a little bit bigger than normal. But bringing out all these historic artists and they're all performing. 50 Cent hanging upside down, like it's awesome. It was really fun. And then this one was just like it was good, don't get me wrong, but like, and it's cool to see rap performed at the Super Bowl because, historically that hasn't really always been the case. But um, again, just felt like I wanted more,
Sure.
and yeah, I don't know, it just
Yeah.
didn't. It wasn't. Again, I'm biased, but
Hmm.
wasn't quite my thing.
Sure. I thought it was good. And I I definitely don't think it was like one of the best Super Bowl performances I've seen, but I did think it was good. The some of the political aspects of it, I agree with you at first. I was like not really sure there's that much there, although
Hmm.
you maybe have to sit with it. I don't know. But then I did listen to a few articles who from people who did kind of interpret it a little bit deeper, where they're pointing out how, there's all these black artists and dancers wearing the colors of the American flag that could represent like how America was basically built on the backs of slaves.
Hmm.
Um, and there's like a double meaning to not like us, like not just directed at Drake, but maybe at the elite class, maybe at the class of people who look down on rap, things like that.
That's a
Um,
fucking stretch, in my opinion, but I
fair
can see
enough,
it. Yeah.
but and of course, yeah, Uncle Sam also like doing the voiceover of saying like, "Oh, this is too ghetto. Do you actually know what the right thing to do at the Super Bowl is?"
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, I think for me the main issue from it being not like the best Super Bowl performance was the selection of songs. It was just
Yeah.
like I think Not Like Us is fun. Obviously, yes, that was the victory lap, and as a enough of a hip hop fan to have been knowledgeable about the beef. It was fun to
Hmm.
see that, but also it made for interesting conversation before and after the show. I was talking to my family about like my parents had no idea leading up, but then I was talking to them about it, and then they said they enjoyed watching it because they knew what the story was
Hmm.
going into it, and they wouldn't have known otherwise. Um, but then like I don't know, of course, did he sing Peekaboo? And like I'm not a huge fan of TV
Yeah.
Off either. I don't know.
Hmm.
Some of these songs I'm just like, like I don't
Yeah.
know. Um, but
Well, he
uh,
just sang TV off so you can scream mustard. That's pretty much it, I'm pretty
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
One of those viral moments on the album, I guess.
Right, right. But yeah, and could it have been better? Yes, but I think ultimately it was pretty good. And yeah, I think it will be memorable more so for the beef than for the performance. Um,
Hmm.
but um, but
I would
yeah,
agree.
he did do it. He did look right at the camera and say,
Yeah.
certified
Let it
pedophile.
certified pedophile. Yeah. And I have thoughts on that, but they don't really matter. So,
Well, it's
um,
funny because I was talking to my family and they, not being hip hop fans, generally, like they're just like, why even have beef? Like, be be collaborative,
everybody should be
like
friends.
yeah, like kumbaya
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then that kind of got me on an interesting rabbit hole of their sentiments were kind of lined up a little bit with J. Cole's sentiments, who
Yeah.
he had a beef song, or he was involved in the beef. And then he like removed his song from streaming and then apologized, and then he had, I thought, a really good song about how he just like didn't really want to, take down other artists that he respects,
Yeah.
and kind of actually got me really excited for what he's gonna release next. He's been hyping up this new album for a long time. I think the off season, is that the next one, or
I
was that
think he
the
released that one
was
already. That
that
was
the
his
okay?
last one, I believe.
I know it's something related to basketball seasons. That's usually the theme.
Yeah,
Um,
let me check.
but it might be the
His
fall
last
off or
one,
something.
yeah, the fall off. Yeah, his
Okay.
last one is the off season, so this
Okay.
is the
Yeah.
fall off.
But yeah, he was kind of talking about like he had a song back in October that I missed, and then learning about the beef, I was looking back.
Mm,
I forget the name of the song that he released, but I thought it was a good song.
yeah,
But anyways,
yeah. I mean, J. Cole, I think I'm excited for whatever he puts out next as well because I think I saw him live and I really got a bigger appreciation for him
yeah,
after that. So it'll be cool to see. And then I mentioned his album was nominated for
Hmm.
Rap Album of the Year, and it wasn't a great album, but it had great songs.
Yeah.
So I am very interested in that as well. Um, but also, going back to the point your parents made about like everybody being collaborative and all that, like rap beef is so ingrained into the culture that like it just is what it is. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like people are always taking shots at each other and it's like a competitive
Hmm.
environment. So like,
Hmm.
it is just part of it, but rarely do we see it on such a big scale as
Yes.
this. I think
Yeah.
most recently, again, the most high profile beasts of the last fucking, I don't know, well, mid 2000s were a whole different era, so I won't even get into that. But since like 2010 have all involved Drake.
Hmm.
And you had him with Meek Mill. He
Right.
destroyed Meek Mill, which was really funny. And then the one with Pusha T, where Pusha T outed his child, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then now this. So yeah, I think people give Drake a lot of shit, but like it would be very easy for Drake to just ignore all of this, to be honest, and not get involved. Um, but he doesn't do that, and a lot of people do. So I give him some credit for that. So, um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens next. He's supposed to drop another album relatively
Great.
soon. I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I'm just assuming, but this was like he said a few words about this album, the some sexy songs for you, and he said this is just like a teaser or a warm up kind
interesting.
of. So,
I guess not super surprising. I mean, he is one to release a lot of music. Uh,
hmm
so yeah.
yep, yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think we covered everything for today. You got
Yeah, I
anything
think
else?
so. No, I don't think so. Until next time, I don't think we'll have the Grammys or Super Bowl to talk about next time, but
That's
some
true.
albums, I'm sure, in a month or so.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, thanks for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and
Bell.
yeah, hit the bell. So, but yeah, we'll catch you next time. So, peace out. All right.